Welcome to the Functional and Integrative Medicine Podcast. This podcast is all about exploring root cause medicine, showcasing the power of this approach, and inspiring other MDs and DOs to follow this incredible path. I'm your host, Ginger Allen, and founder of Your Medical Liaison, a medical marketing agency working with MDs and DOs since 2012. My passion for root cause medicine and physician advocacy drives me to help MDs and DOs who have incorporated functional and integrative medicine into their practices. So let's dive in. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Dr. David Morcom, the owner of Integrative Wellness FX, a leading voice in functional and integrative medicine. Dr. Morcom is a doctor of pharmacy, functional medicine practitioner, and wellness expert who blends the rigor of modern pharmacology with the healing power of herbs, nutrition, bioenergetics, and lifestyle optimization. Through his integrative and holistic approach, he helps clients uncover the root causes of imbalance and reclaim lasting vitality. His journey into functional medicine began when he realized that symptom suppression alone wasn't enough, and that truly healing the body required understanding in its interconnected whole. This inspired him to pursue advanced training in functional medicine and nutrigenomics, ultimately reshaping how he approaches chronic illness and wellness. Today, through his work, Dr. Morcom is on a mission to unravel complex health challenges from mood imbalances and brain to chronic infections, environmental toxicities, and genetic vulnerabilities. With a unique blend of cutting-edge technology and a deep intuition, he crafts personalized healing plans and empowers his clients to take control of their long-term health. Hi, Doc. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ginger. It's a pleasure. I'm excited to talk to you today.
I'm excited to have you. And I have to say that you are the first non-MD DO that I've had on the show because I designed the show for MDs and DOs because I want to encourage other MDs and DOs to go and get this, additional training in functional or integrative medicine, because I really do think it's the future of medicine, treating root cause medicine. But what I love about you is not only are you a doctor as well, but you employ MDs and DOs in your business. And so you're the guy that hires the type of people that I'm trying to encourage to get this training. And I'm sure you are giving them a joy-filled job. So one of the things I have found of all my MDs and DOs that I speak to that are doing functional medicine is that they just love it so much and they get so much joy from what they're doing. So I love that you're actually employing them and giving them a place and a space to practice this kind of medicine. So we're going to dive in, and I want to just ask you kind of just tell us a little bit about your background and, why you got into functional and integrative medicine.
Yeah, well, it's a great question. I think that's an amazing mission. And I think that the world is getting pretty crazy and chaotic, and people are getting sicker and sicker. And it just naturally, functional medicine is becoming more popular because people want answers. And this is something that's actually fixing things and addressing the root cause. So thank you, Ginger, for doing your work. And, my journey started off in many ways, just my background. I'm half Asian, half, Caucasian or white. And so my background already coming from my ethnicity that had a opening to understanding holistic and Chinese medicine and just kind of growing up with that. But really, a lot of my health journey really imparted upon me the importance of everything we'll be talking about today. And I also was in this diagnostic odyssey going from doctor to doctor to try to get answers. And I had some brain injuries at a pretty young age when I was 19 to 20 years old. And then I had some mold toxicity. I've had Lyme disease as well. So the trifecta of some of the harder things to treat, actually, in many ways. And they're all interwoven and causing many problems and issues. And I found that even going into many integrative medicine doctors, that things were still very superficial. And I really like to press the importance of really doing true functional medicine, where we're actually addressing the roots of the tree that are actually creating this inflammation, that are throwing off all these systems on top. So, what I'm very proud about our practice and the doctors that I employ here is that they're not just using hormones and getting your energy and adrenals and things up. We're going deeper to the root systems here, identifying where those rotting roots are, So there might be toxicity, might be gut issues, might be infections, for example. We cut off those rotting roots and fertilize from the ground up, and all these other systems fall back into place. And then we can really be able to have long lasting health where patients have resilience to the world around them. They're not on a bunch of supplements or extreme diets just to feel well. I feel health and vitality is a birthright that we're all born with, and we should wake up in the morning with this vitality. And if you're not doing that and you need to be on all these supplements and extreme diet lifestyles just to feel well, you're not addressing something. There's something going on that hasn't been fixed.
Amazing. So, you know, you went to school for a long time to be a pharmacist. And why would you divert from, being a doctor of pharmacy, which takes a long education route? And then what made you transition? Because you're pretty much into full functional and integrative medicine now. Like you're not even doing pharmacy stuff anymore, right? Can you
No,
talk about that transition and when you decided to make that transition in your journey?
well, even in school, I was a president of, integrative medicine societies within my school, trying to promote and
Okay.
teach pharmacists. So it was a very early on thing. And even coming out, I didn't even practice as a pharmacist for very long. I always
Okay.
knew this was my passion. I was always seeing people on the side and learning and growing. And so partly because of my own healing journey here. And, I
Okay.
sometimes, that I prayed for 100% healing to not have some of the things that have happened to me. But honestly, I don't know if I would be as good as I am and know in depth as well as I do if I didn't have a lot of the pain and suffering that I went through. So very grateful on the other side, moving through that and feeling so optimally healthy to be able to guide people and have the empathy to really see where people are and how I can help them at a deeper level. And so, I see that,
Gotcha.
obviously pharmaceuticals are very simplistic and they're a single molecule that acts on a single receptor sometimes, or blocks a certain enzyme to have a very particular effect that is potent and strong. But also because of this directness, there is a lot of side effects, obviously, as well. And it's cool that herbs and natural medicines have a synergy of all the phytomedicinal nutrients, vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants all together, and they act on numerous receptors and systems at a time and have a natural intelligence to them. So I do love the natural world. And, I'm certified in peptides and many other great technologies. And I use lots of, hyperbarics and PEMFs and red light and you name it to be able to really fix some of these things and not rely just on something to take. But at the end of the day, just because something is natural or something is really cool, new and shiny, advanced technology, it doesn't mean it's actually fixing the root cause of what's happening here. And so I really like to impress the importance of doing true functional medicine and the great need for that in our society right now, because people are so sick when they're coming to us, especially in this post-pandemic world, where they're coming to at a place where their immune systems are highly, highly reactive and they can't even take any supplements. They can't even eat the healthy foods. A lot of my patients are those that have done a lot of the lifestyle and diet and maybe gone to many integrative doctors and are on all these supplements as well. And they still can't get that stability in their life, or maybe they feel good for short periods of time, but they're falling in and out constantly. And again, that's not real healing. That's not real health. And so if we can dive deeper to really understand the root causes of this inflammation and know how to do that technical work, we're not just pushing down, throwing down inflammation, constantly giving adaptogenic herbs and nutraceuticals to fuel them. We're going to the roots of the tree again that are causing a lot of these inflammatory processes. And that requires you to know how to do the deep work to be able to destroy biofilms and kill these parasites and infections, to be able to reset the gut lining, to be able to detox from these very toxic molecules. That really is the pattern that I think is underlying a lot of the dysfunction that we're seeing in this epidemic that's increasing so rapidly. That is not just a normal kind of progression of disease in society. We see it exponentially increasing even over the last decades. So much so that, I've been doing these diagnostic advanced functional medicine tests for over a decade, and there would be some people that would have metals in the past, of course, or mold, where I feel now it's not even if you have heavy metals, it's how much do you have. And these toxins are inside the cellular membranes. They're poisoning the mitochondria themselves. And so you can only make so much progress if you're not really dealing with these deeper layers to do a cellular detox to get these things out. So this is where my passion lies, of doing this deeper work and seeing the natural vitality of the system be very natural and just come back by itself.
And I love that you're sharing this because one of the common themes and threads throughout all of the functional medicine doctors and integrative medicine doctors that I've spoken to is that all patients, clients are unique, and you can't treat anybody the same. Like and most of my doctors, are working with patients sometimes a year or 2 years before they're really seeing great success. And, they get them on the path. But like you said, it takes time. You got to really look at all the biomarkers. You got to look at all of the allergies. You got to check off all the boxes and know that it's a journey, right? It's a journey with these patients. And that's what patients love, because they feel like, wow, I'm really working on what's causing my issues, instead of just, hey, there's a pill. One of the reasons why I wanted to have you on the show is because you are a PharmD. And, you know, one of the reasons why I like working with MDs, DOs that do functional and integrative medicine is because, number one, MDs and DOs is what I've worked with for the past 12, 13 years. So it's my comfort zone, but also because, sometimes medications are needed. So sometimes a prescription is needed. And how do you balance that with functional medicine, right? So I think I use the example, and again, I'm a layman. So for all you doctors out there, if I say this wrong, it's my layman example, but the layman example would be somebody's got, diabetes and they need insulin, right? But they also want to work with a functional medicine doctor. So this is why I like working with, MDs and DOs that are doing functional integrative, because they're like the one-stop shop. And I know you have MDs and DOs on your team. So can you share a story with us? And I'm sure you've got thousands of stories of patients you've helped over the years, but I'd love to hear one that you can, share with us that, that you saw that their lives were significantly improved using a functional or integrative approach.
Yeah, I want to maybe start off with a context of just, reference to what you said, that a lot of times everyone that thinks that what they do is the thing that's going to unlock a patient to be able to feel better. And I want to just dispel this myth sometimes, is that life is complicated, health is complicated. Each person is its own individual, of course, and has their own healing journey. But it's usually not going to be one specific thing that's going to fully take them to where they need to be. And there's things on the mental, emotional, the anatomical and structural and the myofascial beyond just the biochemistry. And then we also look at genetics, look at people's predispositions here, their vulnerabilities, which are really being taken advantage of in such a toxic world here. And so, really having a
Agreed.
team on your to all the pieces that are relevant to you. But the reality also is that the world is very crazy and stressful, and you can't be doing all these things every day, lifestyle, diet. And so these nutraceuticals are so potent, and we have these delivery systems that are using pharmaceutical elegant technology to deliver these nutrients directly into the cell, into the system. So you're able to get IV level nutrition from the convenience of home for a fraction of the cost. And so I use a lot of liposomal nanoparticle technology, for example, which are these little bubbles where the medicine is inside, and they put sound waves and vibrations to turn into nanoparticles, and they can go under the tongue. They go directly into the bloodstream, but better, they go into the brain and the nervous system, the mitochondria, where these toxins are hiding, to be able to actually bind them and get them out long term. They also increase the bioavailability by 500% or more. And so this allows us to do really deep work from the convenience of home. And I just don't find the need for a lot of medications, because I feel that we're able to do so much with natural medicine when we do have the labs. It's not a guessing game. We know exactly what are the things that are creating inflammation in each patient's particular bucket. And then we can just isolate those things and fix those things. And
For
so
sure.
I
Agree.
do see medicines as important and helpful sometimes, but I would say that that's not as common as you may think. And I see it as more bridges to be able to kind of keep things together or knock out that inflammation. For example, in someone that's so sensitive to all things, they can't even take supplements or even can't even take normal foods, then we might use something if the natural antihistamines, anti-inflammatories are not potent enough to kind of knock things down, to be able to open up these pathways, to be able to do some of this deeper work, for example. But, I
Thank you
use a
for
lot of low
clarifying that.
dose naltrexone or thyroid or some bioidentical
Yep.
hormones and things like that are things that we'll use in our practice. But we don't really have to use that much more. Even something like insulin we can use initially, but as we correct the inflammatory processes that are causing this increased cortisol, which is causing this glucose to increase here, then we can start tapering off those things here in connection with their physician.
Agreed. And I would say most of my functional and integrative medicine MDs and DOs would agree with you as well. So give me one of your personal stories of a patient that you just, touched your heart and you're just so, I guess, inspired by, the work that helped inspire the work that you do and just made you feel like, all this hard work and education that I've done is worth it.
Yeah. Well, there's so many patients, but there's one recently that is a child. He's 11 years old, and he just was diagnosed with muscular dystrophy and having some neurological issues with ability in his gait and ability to run and keep up with his friends, go upstairs. And there's some aspects here that are harder when someone comes in. Actually, they have very little symptoms. That's probably the hardest as a practitioner to diagnose, because usually they're having gut issues or have certain symptoms that are telling us what systems are actually off. And so, coming in there, we were able to really harness the power of labs, obviously give us a better understanding of what was happening here. And in this patient, when we dive deeper, there was autoimmunity of his nervous system. And so, sometimes, people would stop right there. And from the more allopathic realm, it's like, okay, you have an autoimmunity of the brain or something like that. And that's a piece of the picture that might be causing some of this neuroinflammation and damage. But then underneath that, what is causing your immune system to go haywire like that in the first place? And it's always, going back to the same tenets of functional medicine. Sometimes there's gut issues and parasites, infections, toxicity, metals, mold, whatever it may be, nutrient deficiencies as well. And so for this particular patient, they actually didn't have huge signs of a fungal overgrowth. And there is, aspects of a silent fungal overgrowth that can appear. And we saw this in labs and testing organic acids, and the rhabinose levels were very high. And he didn't have tons of symptoms of this. But the cool thing is that when we treat that and we killed off all this fungus and repaired that lining of the gut, the inflammation throughout the system started to fall and his symptoms started to improve. And so I was working with a chiropractor and some physical therapists and things at the same time, on a team to help support him. And they were telling me that after we did the fungal work, his myofascial net just started to relax and release. There's so much tension throughout his body. It really can prevent anyone from being able to have proper functioning lymphatic flow. And so we have this myofascial system, which is the interconnecting scaffolding of all the musculoskeletal system. And sometimes we have pain in one place or restriction or tension, and it can be due to inflammation being created at a different place, or injury, at a trauma, of the nervous system, of something that we've gone through in our life, but also if there is inflammation at an organ level. And so this is what I'm seeing actually very commonly, which is why I'm bringing this up, is that there's so much toxicity in the modern day. We're seeing a lot of pain patterns that are being produced by this inflammatory cascade at an organ level. And so, for example, there's sometimes a lot of people have toxicity, metals, mold, and all that inflammation is pulling on that myofascial net, which is then causing restriction and pain and causing biochemical dysfunction as well, because it's a cycle. And this patient, Candida was a big part of the initial piece of what we had to do, is killing that off. And the other practitioners noticed how the myofascial system relaxed, the musculoskeletal system relaxed, and then they were able to get in there deeper to help be able to retrain and reactivate the nervous system from there. So that's just one small example of when we were able
I
to
love
do. There
that.
was some toxicity and things as well, but that was a nice success case as well.
I love that. So I want to go kind of into the business now because I like to, especially you being the business owner and having, you have a big team and, physicians on your team. And, I'm sure there's been challenges along the way. What do you wish someone had told you before you started practicing medicine this way? Like if you could have had some advice and like a crystal ball and be like, oh, I wish I would have known this before I went into opening this practice. And now I'm going to start to go into the advice that I like to have you
Mhm.
give other practitioners.
Yeah. Well, I also am interviewing a lot of people all the time as well. And so I can kind of tell you maybe some of the things that I'm looking for and not looking for as well. But
Please,
what I've
please.
noticed is that, one, sometimes there's this desire to just have all the certifications and education and things before you jump in to start really helping people. I think that's responsible to a degree and very important. But at the same time, I would say my greatest teacher was just, initially when starting, it's just helping all my friends and family and community around me and learning through each case and having my patients being the greatest teachers by far, and also my own journey as well. But just start seeing people. And, if you are passionate, and we have AI and all these things to make it so much easier to do research. And, we have all these courses, education, and elders now to learn from, so that you will learn through the process. And that's what's going to really refine you into the practitioner that you're going to be. So that's one aspect. Don't hold that off to the day when you're perfect and you know everything. Just, you still know so much more than everyone else that's coming to you. And the people that you can help are going to come to you, when you're ready. And so I have this as a weird phenomenon, but I'll go seek a new course or education on a very specific subject. And then that next week we'll have all these patients that will call specifically with that thing going on. And so, that's who knows of what the mechanism of that is here. We could talk about that, but that's just the reality that I've experienced. And so it's
I
interesting.
love that. It's almost like manifesting. I tell, my physicians too that, also to be wary of the shiny object syndrome, because like you said, just start practicing because there's so much education out there. There's so many courses. There's so many certifications. Like you could literally spend your whole life taking certifications and courses and, never get to helping patients because you're so busy getting certified and educated. And physicians by nature, and this, they love to learn, right? They love to learn the new and the greatest and the latest. But, I always try to say too, you're enough. You
Yes.
are great at what you do. You've got this. So, let's focus on the patients now. And then, down the road, once you get the business up and going and you have some free time, then you can go back and get additional certifications. But, initially, especially, when you're getting the business going and I'm helping them with the marketing, I'm like, we're going to stay focused on getting the business launched, getting patients in the door, and then we can go back and finish our learning. So I love that. And then you
Exactly.
said you would touch on a little bit kind of when you're interviewing physicians, like what you're looking for. I think that would be some great information if you want to share.
Well, what I've seen over and over, even these last weeks here, is just that there's so many people that actually now have certifications, which is really great. But there's a lack of the actual experience and the clinical skill, really be able to carry someone gently, methodically, and efficiently from their place of illness back into optimal radiant health. And it's an art. It's an art that takes years to refine and skill. So yes, getting a skill and practice, but also, finding a way to get that actual experience initially, because it's hard to catch 22 in a way, but you need to have that experience to be able to get your foot in the door so you can be higher, so then you can be refined further. And so you just have to have that initial thing, and that can come from just starting your own micro practice. There's so many technologies you can do this so easily, telemedicine, things to make it much easier these days. And it is doable with a very small staff or even by yourself to initially gain some of that experience. But also, there is an aspect of just like being a go-getter, contacting clinics, and being willing to just shadow and learn and take, not as big of a income initially, just to get those skills. And then when you have that, you can be hired for a clinic at the full pay. So just some way
I
to
love
get that clinical experience, you got to do that. And that is key.
I love that. One of the physicians that actually inspired me to really focus on functional and integrative medicine doctors. I've been working with him for 5 years, and he's an autoimmune specialist. He's an MD, but he treats autoimmune with functional medicine. And he created a course, and which I was so excited about. But then he was like, well, they have to do practical applications. Like, I'm not just going to pass them, based on them answering the questions. Like, they actually have to work with a patient. I want to see how they're treating that patient. And so he actually won't give them a certification until they've actually worked with a couple of patients, because you're right. It's not, it's like anything, right? You even, I used to do real estate, and I was like, I took all this licensing and all this education, and I get out there and I had no real world experience. And so, you have to learn that in the field. So same thing as what you're saying is, don't just come looking for a position with no experience. Start getting your experience now. Start, seeing patients, start integrating it into your practice now, so that when you're ready to transition, you've at least got practical experience. That
Yeah,
makes
totally.
perfect sense.
100%.
So, speaking on, there's so much new and upcoming stuff. What trends in functional and integrative medicine are you most excited about? I know there's a lot of stuff, new stuff coming up, but what's one of the things that is kind of like you're looking at and you're like, I'm really liking this. This is something that you add into the practice. I know you mentioned peptides, but something futuristic that you don't have yet, but you're thinking, you're keeping an eye on.
Yeah. I think that integrating technology is really helpful and important. We're in the Aquarian age and Aquarians of technology in a way. And um, there's just so many things that are coming out that have efficacy to be able to support these processes. And I've just found in my own journey and many other more difficult patients that sometimes just taking supplements is not enough. Diet, lifestyle, meditating multiple times per day. And I think the degree of inflammation and toxicity is getting so high that people are coming in much sicker. So we just need bigger tools and bigger guns to be able to support this process. And so for example, the vagal nerve stimulators can be nice to be able to really just strengthen the parasympathetic system, because there is a lot of aspects of the nervous system that are playing a role of everything that's going on here. And so we want to be able to fix what's causing damage to the nervous system, but we also need kind of new ways to be able to repair and heal the nervous system as well. And so there's technologies to be able to do that. There's peptides that increase nerve growth factor, like cerebrolysin. We can use BPC 157, et cetera, right? But also, what I'm very interested in is the psychedelic revolution. And Texas, actually, I don't know if you knew this, but 2 weeks ago, they put $50 million a grant to study ibogaine research. And they are the first state or country or entity to ever put this amount of money into any psychedelic investigation in the world. So Texas is at the the frontier of that in many ways, which I'm very proud. And a lot of these substances, can be done in a ceremonial context to reset things and have higher quality activation. But also we have the ability to microdose to get a lot of the neuroplastic benefits to repair the nerves, regrow new neural pathways, etc. So I think that is a helpful piece here that is helping with some of the nervous system components and also handling some of the mental, emotional, and spiritual components as well. And I also like to say that sometimes that is also not the answer in itself. And because I'm part of a community that has the blessing of really recognizing that there is a lot of mental, emotional, energetic components of things that maybe are open to things like this. But at the end of the day, sometimes they're denying the body as the temple, and they're not doing that deeper work of the gut and the detox that's continuing to trigger the inflammatory storm in their brain that's keeping them in this fight or flight as well. So it's really, again, about figuring out something that's going to be for you. And we don't want to just rely on any substance, natural or not, that this is going to fix you. We want to do, support it on numerous levels.
I love that. That's very cool. And yeah, that all that stuff that's coming out is super cool. And I love that you keep touching on the mental and emotional. When I started working with Dr. Billstrom, the autoimmune doctor that I mentioned to you, he had a therapist on his team, and I was like, "Why do you have a therapist on your team?" And he was like, "Because we do and I don't recall it, but I think it was an ACEs test or something. But anyway, they were looking at childhood trauma, And that was a big part of his, when he goes and does the initial treatment, is looking at, what happened. And I didn't know all of that was interconnected. And I was just like, wow, this is so cool. I didn't know that, childhood trauma can be stored and cause health issues later. So it's just amazing, all the stuff. And I love that I can tell you get that. And you're like, you are looking at big picture. And that's why I made an exception to have you on the show, because I knew that you were going to bring not only just the pharmacology kind of aspect of it, but and because you employ doctors, MDs and DOs in your practice, I knew that that you would be a fit. And so thank you so much for sharing so much knowledge today. If there was one thing that you'd want people to take away, listeners, whether they be physicians or just, laymen like myself, you want listeners to take away about functional and integrative medicine, what would it be?
I want to so bad answer and reflect upon something you just said that I think is really helpful and important. That maybe can just be this closing thing that I want people to know as well. But I could also answer that after. Is that fine?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wanted to use the metaphor of the two arrows. This is something that is taught in Buddhism and other traditions here, and to kind of explain and understand maybe what's going on right now, especially in a post-COVID world and the degree of sickness that we're seeing right now. And so, the first arrow sometimes is stabbed into our hearts through just the trauma we're exposed to, the injuries that we have, the ACEs, the adverse child events, and these are things that you can't avoid, that is just part of life. And the second arrow is sometimes by ourselves, stabbed into ourselves through our judgment of these things that are happening, our reactivity to these things happening, our aversion or avoidance. And on an immune system level, it's this hyperreactivity of the inflammatory response that is so haywire in PTSD that it starts to attack things that it's not supposed to do, and it causes a lot of oxidative stress. And a lot of the damage of these things, of these different conditions, is due to this inflammatory response. And so this is why, with some of the work of, people, experts in the field and mindfulness and the bioenergetics and some of the looking at the mental, emotional, spiritual, are able to have such miracles that happen here. It's not necessarily taking out the first arrow, but that second arrow can happen when our immune system feels more equanimous and balanced and is not so reactive against all these stimuli here. Because even things with Lyme, yes, that's a crazy bacteria that may be a bioweapon, which we talk about, is that the immune system is freaking out and causing a lot of this damage. And if it was just a little bit more relaxed here, then there wouldn't be as many symptoms as there were. So just want to kind of recognize that that's a big piece of the thing here. And that's why this mental emotional work is so important.
I love that. That was great. And it really resonated with me because I come from a family of a lot of anxiousness and a lot of tension, unnecessary, just high anxiety. I'm always telling my family, like, calm down, calm down. Because, it affects my health. I can tell it affects my health. I heard somebody say yesterday, listen to your body. And I'm really trying to do that because my body speaks to me. And when people are getting all anxious and crazy for no reason, I start feeling like my heart starts beating faster and I start getting, nervous and I start getting uncomfortable. And I'm sure that, there's health effects that come from that. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's really important for people to hear. And I love that as a takeaway. So unless you had anything else you wanted to share, Doc, I would love for you to tell us, like, what's the best way to reach you? Not only, if you're a patient looking for some help, or a physician that's like, I'd love to really, have a chat with this guy. What's the best way that people can reach out to you?
Yeah. So again, my name is Dr. David Morcom. I'm the owner of Integrative Wellness FX. And we do telemedicine actually all over Texas here as well. And we have select patients in other states as well. And we are able to do this deeper work from the convenience of home. And I've also hand selected a team of doctors that really also can do this very in-depth, nitty-gritty work that keep in mind the holism of all the things on the mental, emotional, and physical that are going on. And we'd love to support you in your journey. So just contact us at www.integrativewellnessfx.com. I also have a passion project for if you need to save a little bit money. I just want my mission of mine is to allow functional medicine to be available to all people of all demographics. And some of this work can be very expensive, unfortunately. So definitely, if you're having complex issues and you have the ability, it's best to get individualized care and get labs, and that can save time to be more very specific. But I've also created something called the Vibrant Life Community Cleanse, and it's an 8-week process of teaching people to do 1 month of very deep gut work to reset and restore that root system of the body, and also do some cellular detox in the second month. And some people might need to do more, but you know the tools of how to do these things, and educates you on all the other systems as well throughout the process to help individualize it. It's like a choose your own adventure, and it's completely free. Just for the cost of the supplements, you have the guidance to be able to do that.
Oh, that's so nice of you, doctor. And can they find that information on your website, or is it can you tell us how would they find out about that?
Yeah, it would be on the website, but it's also got its own separate. It's vibrantlifecommunity.org.
Oh, I'm definitely going to check that out. And we're definitely going to tag that in our social media so everybody knows about that. That is so wonderful. I find that all of you in the functional and integrative medicine world are always doing so much free stuff, free education, the blogs that you write and the courses that you produce, that people can really do a lot on their own. And you're right. A lot of this stuff, especially the labs, can be expensive and some people just can't afford it. So thank you for doing that and giving back. That's a wonderful way to end the show. Thank you for being here today, taking time out of your clinic to meet with us today, doctor, and we appreciate it. Have a great
Thanks
day.
so much, Ginger.